This year's Valedictorian goes to a member of our National Honor Society with a 4.58 weighted GPA. As a National AP Scholar, he's graduating with 15 AP classes and is one of our 2 National Merit finalists. As a U.S. Presidential Scholar semifinalist, the Federal Department of Education in Washington has placed him among our nation's 700 top students out of 3.5 million graduating students this year. He's played basketball every year for CCS since he was in 7th grade, which is fitting since he's attending a university where NCAA basketball championships are relatively common. He is enrolled at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, majoring in finance and computer science. Congratulations, Jakob Klemm.
Good evening, y'all. On behalf of my classmates, I want to start by thanking all the people who have helped us excel as students and servant leaders the last several years. Most importantly, I want to express my appreciation to all the parents. You've driven us to school and sports practices, paid our tuition, and in a lot of cases, written essays for us. I also want to give a special shout out to Mr. Axum and Mrs. Grimes. In the words of Kevin Durant, you two are the real MVPs for this year. Mr. Axum, your leadership in chapel and the mentorship in the classroom that you've given us, especially during the senior year, has been incredible and has prepared us in so many ways for college and adult life. I really appreciate the way that you've approached the biblical worldview and how you've taught us the gospel every day in class. Mrs. Grimes, you're the reason we're able to graduate tonight, and the school is so lucky to have you on staff. You've worked really hard to help us during our senior year, and you always go the extra mile. Your personal advice has been precious, and I think you should try therapeutic counseling if you ever get bored of guidance counseling. I also want to give a huge thank you to all the other faculty at CCS. Many of you have been instrumental in our development into young adults, and I've appreciated getting to know several of you on a more personal level. Unfortunately, I don't have time to thank each of you individually, but please know that we appreciate your ministry. And I want to thank all of you that have literally and metaphorically been on the sidelines supporting us. It makes me sad I won't get to play on any more seasons for my coaches, many of whom are here tonight, but I'm thankful for all that they've invested in me the last several years. And to all the other adults who aren't teachers or coaches, but who mentored, befriended, and encouraged us, for me that was people like Chris and Ransom and Scott and Paxson. Thank you for all the time and energy you've poured into my life and into my classmates. These people have been a great influence on me and my friends and have taught us a lot outside of academics. I think a lot of what I've learned can be summarized by my senior quote. Francis Chan said, "Our greatest fear should not be of failure, but of succeeding at things in life that don't really matter." So fellow graduates, I hope we'll keep this in mind in college, where we'll have the freedom to make our own career decisions, educational decisions, spiritual decisions, relational decisions, financial decisions, and all other kinds of decisions. Our real fulfillment isn't going to come from success in our career or education or friendships, because those things aren't designed to bring real fulfillment. To all the students in the room out there, you've probably heard since you started at Covenant that happiness doesn't come from success or money or good reputation or good grades or healthy relationships. For now, though, that concept is really just a Christian cliche, and it'll stay that way until you actually have an experience or two where you're let down by these kinds of things. So unfortunately, pain is inevitable. I've had a few of these experiences the last couple of years, but I think the college application journey is the most applicable to all the underclassmen here tonight. It's hard to overstate how overwhelming college becomes when you're a senior, but it really is the topic of the year, and people start asking you all the way back in August, so where are you going to school? If you'd asked me at any point in time in my high school career what my dream college was, I usually would have said Duke. I've been a Duke basketball fan for years, and I still have a couple Duke posters hanging up in my room, which is really ironic considering where I'm actually going to school this fall. Pretty much all the energy I invested into my academics and extracurriculars was to help me get into Duke or a similar school. So obviously I was pretty disappointed when I got waitlisted at Duke, because in college terms, a waitlist isn't much better than a rejection. What's also ironic is that UNC, where I am going, was literally the last school I applied to. I didn't know anything about it, but I saw I had a good business school, didn't have a long essay to write like the other colleges, so I figured why not apply. Anyway, I got waitlisted at Duke and got into UNC, which left me dealing with the fact that maybe God didn't want me at my dream school, but rather that God was directing me to my dream school's arch rival. You can imagine that I was really conflicted 5 weeks later after I decided to attend UNC, when I actually did get into Duke off the waitlist, thus continuing this roller coaster of emotions and uncertainty associated with college admissions. Long story short, after all of prayer, conversation, and reflection, I've stuck with my dream school, or I abandoned my dream school, thanks to God's direction. And I've come to realize through all the college rejections and acceptances that our perceived successes do not always align with God's will for us. Instead, God has often used perceived failures, like college rejections and waitlistings, as a part of his plan to put us where he wants us. Sometimes a no in one important part of our life is God's grace, ensuring that we don't succeed at pointless endeavors which distract us from God's plan. We spend a lot of our time chasing good grades, acceptance, a particular person, but a lot of times if we even do accomplish these things, we just move on to the next challenge, and each time we believe that the next thing we accomplish will truly make us happy. I'm standing up here giving the Valedictorian speech, and I can tell you that straight A's do not bring real happiness, because grades and test scores in colleges fall into that category of things that don't really matter in the long run when you consider that the long run is eternity for the Christian. When we invest our happiness in awards or grades or a certain school or a possession, we will always be disappointed because those things don't really matter in light of eternity and in light of what God says is actually important. It's hard to communicate this concept to my own generation, where everyone is chronically anxious about everything, but it's my prayer that my peers here will focus on things that are truly important in the long run. Straight A's and district championships and money and prom dresses and Instagram followers are all nice things to strive for within reason, but none of them have any real value 10 years from now, much less eternally. Rather than spending time in college and high school pursuing fulfillment with your chosen vice or idol, I would encourage all of you, myself included, to focus on building a firm foundation for your relationship with Christ. No life has eternal significance unless it's grounded in Christ, but unfortunately that's a lot easier to say than to understand and act out because of the many things in society that promise importance and relevance. To the graduates and underclassmen and family and friends who question or don't understand the gospel and having a relationship with God, I would encourage you to consider Ephesians, which says, "By grace you have been saved, through faith, and this is not of your own doing, it is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one can boast." We don't believe in God because we figured out how to act better than other people or because we don't believe in science. As Christians, we invest in a relationship with God out of faith, because we've heard Jesus' teachings and promises, and we recognize that we are not better than other people at all. We know that we are born into this world as people who need the grace of God if we're to have any hope of being reconciled to him. Because we're trusting in Jesus' promises of forgiveness, we're enjoying the benefits of a relationship with him, which are peace, joy, and the hope of an eternity with God. Obviously, we haven't perfected these things because we know that while we're on earth, we don't really have the capacity to perfect anything. But we trust God that we will have perfect peace and joy once we die, and this trust for our future is what enables Christ followers to focus on what really matters on earth, which is living a life that honors God. So ultimately, to my fellow Christian and non-Christian friends alike, I urge you towards the same thing, which is to forget about the things that don't really matter until you've figured out those things that do matter. The most important questions every person should answer are, who is Jesus, and what is really true? Because our answers to those questions should change our beliefs and our actions one way or another. If you believe that Jesus is just another good dude, then there's not much ultimate purpose to life, and you should probably stop listening to an 18-year-old giving spiritual advice and go enjoy yourself. But if you believe that Jesus is God, then that changes everything about why you learn, love, work, and live. So while I'm thankful for the friends I made in high school, the education, the fun times in sports, and the fact that UNC won a championship the year that I'm going there, I'm most thankful for the spiritual grounding that's been given to me by my family, my church, and CCS. I'm very excited for the opportunity to have a new community and to make new friends, and I hope that I'll be used by God to reach people I'm in contact with. God has already determined who he's going to bring into the fold of his church, but I look forward to my role of laying the seed to grow fruit, spiritual fruit, in the hearts of people that he changes. I know my classmates share similar sentiments, and they're all well prepared for the spiritual challenges that they'll face. Let me close my talk by saying that friends and learning and sports can be found pretty much anywhere, but not many places do as good a job as Covenant at helping students answer and understand the most important questions about our lives and our purpose. To the underclassmen, I challenge you not to waste the biblical community and the truth that's being given to you here. You have 7 hours every weekday where you're being given biblical foundations, but none of that's going to do you any good unless you pursue a relationship with God on your own time and in a healthy local church. To all the friends and family here, I thank you for coming to witness our transition from high school to freedom. And to my friends in the class of 2017, I pray that you'll consider the truth being given to you at Covenant as you begin college, and I wish you the best as we become freshmen yet again.